I said, they look for your worst moment, a bad joke, a salacious personal scandal, and then they air that out to hurt your reputation, to get you to apologize or stop saying what you're saying. And so I think that cancel culture has been around for a long time, but now the people that are using it the most, it is the billionaire political class. It is the oligarchs, effectively, because you look at the most powerful people that are running our country, they have blood on their hands.
You record back up, and we got some more Nick Fuentes clips for you guys today. First clip got for you guys is Nick on Jack Neel Podcast that he was on a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they talk about who invented cancel culture. If you could change one government agency, what would you change? And then like the background of Nick and everything that he's been doing, like I said, the generational run. So I have a couple clips for you guys today about that. I'll ask if you guys like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on the videos. Helps me out, helps the channel out. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it. Appreciate the love. Like I said, just try my best to get these clips out to you guys and push more Nick Fuentes. He inspires me. I hope he inspires you. Nick's live Monday through Friday on Rumble. I'll link it down below in the description. And yeah, I'll let you guys get into some Nick Fuentes.
Do you think invented cancel culture?
Cancel culture has been around forever. I think it's maybe a better way to say it is it's character assassination. And we live in an open society. I don't think there's a lot of assassinations anymore, although that's not really the case this year. Charlie Kirk was killed. They tried to kill Donald Trump. But generally speaking, we don't live in a very violent political order. So what they do now is they engage in reputational destruction, character assassination. If they don't like what you're saying, they go out there and they, like I said, they look for your worst moment, a bad joke, a salacious personal scandal, and then they air that out to hurt your reputation, to get you to apologize or stop saying what you're saying. And so I think that cancel culture has been around for a long time, but now the people that are using it the most, it is the billionaire political class. It is the oligarchs, effectively, because you look at the most powerful people that are running our country, they have blood on their hand. They have blood on their hands. These are some of the worst people in the world. We're just now seeing some of the Jeffrey Epstein files come out. This is a notorious trafficker who rolls with underage girls, engages in blackmail. Of course, he dies under mysterious circumstances. He's friends with the most powerful people in the world. They're engaged in war crimes. They're engaged in corruption, bribery, lobbying. But billionaires are never canceled. It's always small-time political activists. It's always rogue congressmen like Thomas Massie or Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's an asymmetry, which is to say that it's always media money and power that are using reputational destruction against the weaker people typically that have very little influence or very little power. And they do that to silence dissent. So cancel culture is something that is used mainly by the powerful. It's asymmetric warfare.
You noted on your stream last night, it led me to this logical conclusion that they kind of manufactured it in a way like, this is racist, this is homophobic, this is transphobic. But really, the only effect you get is when you say something anti-Semitic, know? Right. So, like, are you conspiratorial to the point where you believe that the whole thing was manufactured just so no one could say anything that was considered anti-Semitic by their standards?
I think it speaks to who wields the power in the country, because there's that famous adage, which is to learn who rules over you, learn who you're not allowed to criticize. That's attributed to Voltaire. Voltaire didn't say that, but nevertheless, it's very true. And it goes without saying, if you're at your job, you can't criticize your boss. You can't ridicule or attack your boss. Why? Your boss has power over you. If you offend him, he'll fire you. Similarly, in the United States, for roughly the last 10 or 15 years, it was very acceptable to attack straight white men, Christians. They were the butt of every joke. You could make fun of Southerners. You could make fun of hillbillies with Southern accents. You could make fun of white people for not having a culture, not being able to dance, attribute all the evils of the world to white people, or Christians for that matter. You were not allowed to criticize racial and religious and ethnic minorities. You couldn't criticize blacks, Hispanics, Asians. Couldn't talk about mass migration. What has changed in the past year, though, is that it seems that some of the political correctness concerning the minorities has gone away. And in the past year, it seems now you're able to talk a little bit more openly about, let's say, black crime. People talk about black fatigue. You're able to talk more about illegal immigration, which is largely an Hispanic issue. You're able to talk about Indians in a derogatory way. But what is interesting is that a year after the Trump revolution in 24, Trump gets back in, political correctness seems to be dead. You look across the board, you can still criticize white people, and the left frequently does. Now you're able to criticize non-white people and the racial ethnic minorities. But the one group you're still not allowed to criticize is Jews. If you're called racist, that gets laughed off now. If you're called anti-white, well, the left is pretty openly anti-white. But to this day, you still cannot be, so-called or in reality anti-Semitic. And if you're following the logic, you can't criticize the powerful, those that rule over you. That would seem to suggest that if you can't criticize, maybe they're the most powerful ethnic group in the United States of America. I think that's logical.
Nick, you're banned on most social media platforms. You're on a no-fly list. Your bank accounts are frozen. You're investigated by the FBI, and you even had someone try to come to your house to kill you. What exactly did you say that made you so dangerous?
Well, from the very beginning, the first thing that I said is that Israel is not our closest ally with the United States. And what is interesting is that so much has happened since that happened, which was about 8 years ago. And I guess it's important to understand how these things take place, which is that, for example, somebody showed up to my house with a gun trying to kill me because I said that after the election, I said, your body, my choice, which is like a twist on my body, my choice. I got doxxed. But my address had been on the internet because the SPLC posted it. Southern Poverty Law Center. This is one of these liberal outfits. They posted a photo of my house on their website. And this is, by the way, one of the richest nonprofits on the left. They're up there with the ADL. They're very wealthy, very powerful. It's important to understand they put the address out there, and crazy liberals, leftists got that, and they attacked my house because of something I said on Twitter. But it's important to know that I was targeted first by the SPLC, by the ADL. This is why my address is out there. This is why I was branded at one time a white supremacist and a white nationalist. And a lot of people don't understand that that is really the anatomy of how somebody is canceled, is you say something that is against, let's say, the hegemonic left. You say something that is against the most powerful global special interests. And people don't realize it works this way. So, like, for example, you'll say, Israel's not our closest ally. And then a group like the ADL, which is a group, they're called Anti-Defamation League. They're against the defamation of Jewish people. A group like that will identify you as an enemy of their special interest, which is the Israel lobby. They will pay somebody, not a significant amount of money, but they'll pay somebody a full-time salary to then follow you around, how you make your money, what you do for a living, your family, your employers, employees, friends, associates, and they start to poke and look for ways that they can hurt you, to persuade you to stop saying the things that you're saying. So in my case, from a very early age, I was not really controversial when I got started. I didn't really say anything that was that out there, but I was saying that Israel's not our ally. So they put somebody on me. In this case, it was Jared Holt at Right Wing Watch. Right Wing Watch is a subsidiary of People for the American Way, which is a Soros-funded nonprofit. So this guy would watch my show every night. He was paid to do this. It's his job. And he was paid to look for every time I said anything controversial, anything that sounded controversial, any joke that sounded offensive. And his job was then to clip what sounded bad, post it on Twitter, and say that represented that I'm a white nationalist, I'm an extremist, neo-Christian fanatic. And this has taken place over the course of 10 years. Ever since I was 18 years old, this is what I have been subjected to. And after 10 years, you get a profile as all your worst clips, all the things that could sound bad. All those things have been compiled over your entire career, and then they make you out to be a fanatic, a nut job, a hateful person. And so that's how I got the reputation as a white nationalist, all of the above. What they then do, of course, is they rile up their base. So the person that showed up at my house was a 23-year-old kid. I don't actually know what his motivation was. The police never told me. I imagine he was maybe feeling bad about the election. He showed up at my house about a month after that. Maybe he was upset about my tweet about abortion or feminism. But he was effectively sicked on me by these types of groups that built up that catalog of horrible things that engage in that reputational destruction. And so that's just a little insight into how this, it's sort of the anatomy of a smear, the anatomy of that kind of labeling and that kind of smear campaign.
If you could make one government agency disappear overnight, which would it be?
I would probably make the FBI disappear overnight. I would, to be honest, I would take a lot of the intelligence agencies. I'd take all of them put together and get rid of them overnight.
Why?
Because every single one of them is completely infiltrated by foreign agents. And I think that the United States should have an intelligence service, and we need a federal law enforcement. So you need something like an FBI. You need something like a CIA. But the problem is that all of the federal law enforcement and intelligence, which maybe have the most freedom of action, they have arguably the most raw power out of anybody in the country. Over generations, they have all been systematically infiltrated by various nation states. A good example is our national security advisor, Mike Waltz. Now, this is not strictly speaking part of the intelligence apparatus, but it's maybe the most egregious example in the national security state. Mike Waltz is the national security advisor. He creates the briefings and the plans and all of the memos for the president on national security. So anything concerning war, terrorism, proliferation of WMD, he creates that briefing. He informs the president. Trump appointed Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz was fired 3 months after he got the job because he was texting Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, on an encrypted Israeli messaging app. And they believed that he was actually working on behalf of Netanyahu to push the United States into a war with Iran. So when you have that kind of corruption at the highest levels of the most important organs of the government, the national security state, you have to start from scratch. You don't know who's working for who. You have to fire everybody and then rebuild all of it with loyal Americans, people that it's unambiguous are working for the United States of America.
Senators Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell denounce you. Vice President J.D. Vance says that you're a total loser, disavows you, and you're not part of the MAGA movement. Do you think they're embarrassed by you, or do you think they're afraid of you?
They are afraid of what I represent, which is what has happened with MAGA. It started out as a revolutionary movement. What was the message of MAGA? It was America first, Americanism, not globalism. And deeper than that, Trump said, when I get elected in 2016, he said, we are going to throw out all the super PACs, all the lobbyists, all the global banks, the global special interests. People forget how radical that first campaign was. And then immediately, once Trump won the election, all the interests came in. The Republican Party filled the White House with their personnel. The special interests like Sheldon Adelson, like Ken Griffin from Citadel on Wall Street, all the interests poured in, and they gradually and slowly captured Trump, Mar-a-Lago, MAGA, and they made the Trump movement serve the GOP and their special interests, such that by 2020, Trump was unrecognizable. At 16, he said, we're going to end foreign wars. We're going to build a wall. We're going to end free trade. In 2020, he was bragging about moving Israel's embassy to Jerusalem, lowest black unemployment in history, cut the corporate tax rate by over 10%. It was a completely different campaign. And what I represent, I not only represent the young people, but I represent the actual promise of the original Trump revolution. Realizing America first, Americanism, not globalism. And so you have people like Ted Cruz or J.D. Vance. they see MAGA as effectively a form of a Trojan horse. It looks like and is dressed up like something new, something different, something unconventional that actually challenges power. In reality, now that Trump has been elected the second time, it's a true Trojan horse. What awaits inside the Trump movement is lobbyists. Inside of it is the corporate interest. That's why Trump gets elected. He buries the Epstein files. He bombs Iran. He extends the corporate tax cuts. If somebody like myself is able to have a platform, then we will expose how MAGA has been corrupted. And then potentially in 2028, we might get another crack at actually having a populist takeover of the GOP. They would be happy if people would pretend that Trump of 2024 is the same as Trump of 2016, so that it's going to protect their grift. That's why they don't like me.
I would assume that they kind of already had control over him, already had blackmail on him, and he kind of knew that.
I don't
Because I'm not sure what's in the Epstein files. I haven't looked at it too closely. My editor was telling me something about Donald Trump and Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of tell me about that, and if you think that Trump is like guilty of that kind of thing, maybe.
With Epstein, I'm skeptical that Trump actually did anything wrong. At least I was very skeptical because by they, I mean the Democrats have been showing the videos and pictures of Trump and Epstein for over a decade. And I really thought that if there was anything there, we would have seen it by now. And there's some truth to this argument that they did everything to stop him in 2016 and 2020 and 24. If there was anything really damning in the files, wouldn't we see it by now?
Yeah, it's like, well, why is this happening now? That's my question. Yeah.
They charged him in New York, in Georgia, 2 federal indictments. If he did anything criminal, they would have brought it to light. That being said, Trump does not want the Epstein files to get out, and he's now involved in an active cover-up because he came out with his Department of Justice in July and said there are no Epstein files. They don't exist. There's no emails, no letters, no personal effects. There's nothing left, he said, other than the actual child material, which would show indecent images or photos or videos of the underage girls being abused. Well, we now know that was a lie because, of course, now Congress has compelled the DOJ to release the things they have. And we've seen that there's tens of thousands of emails that are already out there. There'll be tens of thousands of more documents. So now it begs the question, why did Trump lie? Why did the DOJ lie and say there were no files when they knew that the files existed? It would seem to suggest that Trump is in the files. He knows he's in the files, and he's worried about what is in them. Here's another question. If what was in the files about Trump was innocuous, why would he be fighting so hard to keep it suppressed? It might be embarrassing. It might be politically harmful to him. At this point, it's more politically harmful to cover it up. They had to shut down Congress a month early to keep that from coming out. So the question now is, if there is nothing bad in the files about you, because we know you're in them and we know you lied about that, why are you fighting so hard to prevent it from coming out? We almost have to draw a negative inference that there's something in there that he doesn't want to get out because it might be criminal or outrageous or deeply offensive to our conscience. And I would say all you have to do is look at the timeline to consider who might be holding the cards there. Elon Musk, in I think it was June or May, went to the Oval Office for the last time, and it didn't go well. He left the meeting, went on Twitter, and said Trump will not release the Epstein files because he knows he's in them. 1 week later, Israel attacked Iran. This is the war they've wanted for 20 years. Realistically, they've wanted it for 45 years. And every president, from Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden, didn't give it to them. Israel bombed Iran. A week later, Trump bombed Iran. The United States is effectively now in a state of war with Iran. This is what they wanted for half of a century. After the war ends, Netanyahu visits the White House to celebrate that Israel and the United States destroyed Fordo, Iran's nuclear complex. It was the day before that visit that the DOJ produced a memo saying the Epstein files would never be released because they don't exist. So it's bookended from when the Epstein files are brought up as a threat against Trump to when they're buried by the DOJ, with the war in Iran. And given that Epstein was potentially Israeli intelligence, I think all signs point to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem controlling those files.
You know, it's just facts. You know, we all know Israel's got the files. I mean, that's what I believe. I believe they use it, and that's why they had Epstein as an agent, you know, to use it to get blackmail on our politicians in America, you know, and Congress, and it's just facts, you know, and people don't agree with that, you know, but that's what I believe, you know. And then Nick saying, like, you know, I mean, why they think he's dangerous, you know, I mean, he's dangerous because he speaks the truth. He speaks his mind. People don't like that. When you're authentic and real, you cuss. People don't like that, you know, when I say fuck this or that. They want to be Mary Poppins and all that. They don't like stuff when how Nick is, you know, when it comes to that. But that's all I got for you guys today. Like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on the videos. Helps me out, helps the channel. Like I said, almost at 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for everything. And that's it, you know. Nick's live Monday through Friday on Rumble. Link down below in the description. Everyone have a good one. This is Pure Record out.